Ladies and gentlemen, this video is a deep dive into discussion about where the Bitcoin bull market top will be in Q4 2025. We'll be analyzing why we think the top will be in Q4 2025, but also going into price targets. Not only my own predictions, right, but also the predictions of Benjamin Cowen, the predictions of Crypto Crew University, the predictions of PlanB with the stock to flow model, the predictions of the Pi cycle indicator top chart, the predictions of the power law oscillator chart, and also the predictions of the Bitcoin terminal price chart. So 6 different predictions from 6 different creators of predictions, some of which are very big names in the space. And then I'm going to be giving you my own predictions and why I think my predictions are the best. Debunking 6 separate predictive methods and giving you my one to put in their place. So guys, as I said, a deep dive into where the Bitcoin top will be. A very interesting video, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, whatever it is. We're getting a good consensus about what the market is thinking about the next Bitcoin bull market top. Stick around to the end. As mentioned in the introduction, today we're going to be giving you multiple opinions from multiple different people about the Bitcoin bull run top, okay? People like PlanB, people like Benjamin Cowen, people like Crypto Crew University, people like myself. I actually have my own formula I've got on the side of the screen here. Obviously, I think my formula is the best, otherwise I wouldn't be having the formula. But I'm also going to give you their opinions, and then I'm going to look into things like terminal price predictions. I'm going to look into things like Bitcoin power law theory, logarithmic regression bands, Pi cycle top indicators, monthly chart RSI indicators. All of these things are going to give you separate Bitcoin top targets for 2025, okay? Then we're going to narrow it down and come to a conclusion about where that top will be. Now, obviously, there's a few things we need to discuss before we get into it. First and foremost, it's January 2024. It's almost 2 years away from when we're expecting the bull market top to be. And so that's obviously going to leave us with room for error, and obviously going to leave us with some data that's going to be narrowed down in the future when we get closer to the date. We can't really make precise predictions almost 2 years ahead of time, right? It's not possible. So this data is going to be subject to change, of course, but it is going to give you an indication of where it might be. And then second of all, we need to establish if the top will actually be in 2025 to begin with. So how do we establish that? Well, as everyone I'm about to speak to you about today accepts and understands, Bitcoin is in a 4-year cycle theory. Okay, that's not a weird opinion to have. That's just simply true. Now, Crypto Crew University perhaps takes a different approach, but we'll discuss that in a second. Now, I believe Bitcoin's in a 4-year cycle theory. I think it's an objectively true trend, so it's not even really opinion at this point. I've got a chart on the screen here which shows you the 4-year cycle theory. It shows you the date range trends that build up the 4-year cycle theory. As you can see in the top left-hand side of the screen, we have 5 separate date range trends, all of which are color-coded. You can see days from bottom to halving in yellow. That is the yellow measurement down here. Days from top to bottom in pink. That is the pink measurement over here. And you can see they're all color-coded and measured throughout every single cycle. And you can see ultimately, just pause the video and take a look. Ultimately, this prediction, these date range trends ultimately predict the top to be in October 2025 or around that region as the bull market top, right? So October 2025 top, this is the same trend that allowed me to predict on this YouTube channel publicly a November 2021 top and also a November 2022 bottom. This is public predictions. These aren't things I've just said. You can go watch my track record video at my featured YouTube channel page. But overall, the bull market should begin after the halving, the actual cyclical bull market, and we will be seeing a top in Q4, probably October 2025. That is the overall consensus, not only from myself, but also from the vast majority of analysts in the cryptocurrency space, because we're looking at objective trends here. Now, is this trend guaranteed to work? No, nothing's guaranteed, but we have to trust the trends where possible, okay? So that is what's, predictable, at least. That's what we've got. We've got the data suggested at October 2025 top. So the question becomes, well, where will that top be, right? What price will that top be at? Now, let's start diving into some predictions here. Now, I'm going to leave mine for last, okay? And then once I've done mine, I'll go back and I'll analyze all predictions and come to the best possible conclusion. I'm going to go through other people's predictions first and foremost. First and foremost, Benjamin Cowen. So again, I will criticize their predictions later and debunk them to an extent later. But Benjamin Cowen uses the logarithmic regression band, or his variation of the logarithmic regression band, to come to a prediction of around 100K or just over 100K Bitcoin in Q4 2025. Now, obviously, credit where credit is due. Benjamin Cowen sticks within the 4-year cycle in this prediction, but I'm not going to criticize it right now. That's his prediction, Q4 2025, 100K or just over 100K, using a logarithmic regression band very similar to this one on the screen right now. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. You can see logarithmic regression band is essentially something that starts out with exponential returns on Bitcoin and gradually tapers out. And eventually this should come to a flat line. So it's kind of like a band that predicts diminishing returns in a way. Now, Ben doesn't use this specific band, but this band, from what I see, actually brings us to a very similar price prediction. All you need to do is extrapolate the movement of these bands. Just drawing straight lines like that will give you a rough explanation of it. And then you can basically draw out where October 2025 is, and you can see that Bitcoin will be roughly in that same price range, 100K-ish. But obviously he has a more specific formula, more specific band that he uses. It's locked behind a paywall, so I can't actually bring it up right now, but it's very similar to what you see on the screen right here. It's like this rainbow, and essentially Bitcoin, in a similar fashion to this rainbow specifically here, tops out 2 levels on the rainbow less each cycle. That's his prediction, right? It's not this specific rainbow right here, but eventually that's what he predicts, and that brings us to around just over 100K in October 2025. That's really all you need to know about it. We'll come back in a second and criticize the claims, but ultimately, I don't necessarily disagree with his price prediction. Just over 100K in October 2025 seems reasonable to me. We'll discuss that more at the end of the video. Crypto Crew is one I have a bit more of a problem with, but again, we'll discuss the criticisms towards the end. He claims that Bitcoin will reach 80K, an 80K top only, in this year or the start of next year. So he's deviating from the 4-year cycle theory there as well, and you can kind of, assume my disappointment with that, I suppose. And then he predicts on top of that a 10-year bear market preceding that, which I think is just honestly very unsupported. But look, what he actually points to, his trend that he points to, is actually very valid. He points to a trend of 5.3 on Bitcoin. Now we can go all the way back and show you, but we'll just show you a few data points so you get the gist of it. Essentially, he's taking measurements from the Bitcoin bottom to the Bitcoin top. Okay, for example, 2015 to 2017, that was 11,700. So if we take that number, 11,700, and we divide that by the number 5.3, and we bring it to the next cycle, we can see it gave us 2,200, and that actually perfectly predicted the gain from the bottom to the top in 2018 to 2021. And all we need to do is do that one more time. So take that gain, it's actually 2,100, whatever it is, 2,200 roughly, divide that by 5.3, and this number here, 415%, should be what we get from the bottom to the top in this cycle, 410, 15%, whatever it is, right? And that brings us to around 80K, right? It's actually 79K if I did it correctly, but around 80K. So essentially he's taking this number, 5.3, he's dividing bear market bottom to bull market tops throughout Bitcoin's history by 5.3, and that supposedly gives you the gain from the bottom to the top in the next cycle. It's very valid. It's worked every single time. I'll give him credit for that. And it does certainly predict around 80K for our next Bitcoin bull market top, but I have various problems with that, which I'll bring up in a second. So we've got, well, let's just keep track of what we got here, right? We'll write it down on the screen. Benjamin Cowen predicting just over 100K, so 100K-ish, right? Where's my keys here? He's got 100K in around Q4 2025 as per 4-year cycle theory, right? 100K Q4 2025 4-year cycle theory. We've got Crypto Crew University saying around 80K, but it's actually going to be this year, right? 2024 roughly, or the start of 2025. What else do we have? All right, we have the next one, PlanB. Now, PlanB is taken pretty seriously in the cryptocurrency space, perhaps not to throw shade, but I'm directly throwing shade, perhaps for no reason. This guy's blocked me on Twitter for criticizing his views, and not heavily criticizing them at all, really, just pointing out some small errors with them. Blocked me on Twitter in 2020. He was predicting very, very high prices. We didn't reach those prices. I was correct in criticizing him. He blocked many, many people on Twitter. He's very infamous for blocking people. But essentially, he's got something called the stock-to-flow model. You've probably heard of it. And it's predicting essentially a 520,000, where is the number here? As you can see, I can't actually go to his Twitter account because he's blocked me, but $524,000 top in the next Bitcoin bull market, and he's a believer in the 4-year cycle, so $520,000 top in around Q4 2025, as per his stock-to-flow model. So we'll go ahead and chuck that in. We'll discuss that more in a second. We'll discuss why I don't necessarily agree with it in a second. 524,000 top in 2025 Q4. Okay, so at least he believes in the 4-year cycle. Chuck that in there. What's next? Okay, moving into less specific, things. There's people who have created these things, of course, but they're not big names. They're just trends and indicators. We've got something called the Bitcoin power law, right? Long-term power law indicator, commonly called the long-term power law oscillator. And essentially, just like logarithmic regression bands, but very different in a way, has these linear lines on the logarithmic chart, 3 of them, predicting Bitcoin bottoms and tops. It's actually been very accurate in the past. It's actually one of the ways I was predicting the Bitcoin bottom in 2022, November 2022. I was looking at this chart here. On the day of the bottom, I looked at this chart and said, oh, look, we've reached the bottom on the Bitcoin power law. So we need to, really come and consider the fact that the bottom could be in. But this actually predicts, if we're moving to 2025, right? Doesn't have an exact date range here. That's just the way the chart works. But this is 2025 Q4. It's predicting 474K by the purple line. But if we're looking at where Bitcoin topped in the previous cycle in 2021, it was in between the purple and the green line. So let's go ahead and say we do that again, right? Let's go to Q4 2025 around here. We would predict, between the purple and the green line, let's just say 300K. All right, that's roughly in between. 300K, Q4 2025, will make it so known, but it's very, very rough. That's what the power law oscillator is indicating here. So again, 300K, Q4 2025. Right, roughly 300K. We'll just write that in, roughly 300K. And we'll also write in roughly 300K for Benjamin Cowen. Roughly 100K for Benjamin Cowen, because that's what he predicted. Right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the terminal price indicator on Bitcoin. This is something you've probably heard of. It's been used in the past many, many times. Again, another indicator using macro data, using macro charts, using some information from mining here, dividing it by 21 million. You can see all the information for how it comes to reality here on the website. All we need to do is type up on Google Bitcoin terminal price indicator and it will come up. If you're actually interested in how these formulas are created, you can go ahead and read up about it. I personally don't care. All I care about is what it's done historically, and historically it's been pretty good. Okay, so it's hard to know exactly what it's predicting, because as you can see, the red line is what's meant to lead to the Bitcoin top, or where the Bitcoin top is meant to be. It's called the terminal price indicator. But the red line's moving, and the red line depends in a similar way to a moving average on Bitcoin price action. What we can go ahead and do is look at where the red line was in around the same time of the cycle in 2020. Okay, January 2020 was at 7,000. We ended up reaching a top on the red line at around where we touched it, at least, was around 67,000. So 7,000, so it's a 10x from 60,000. So let's assume, using diminishing returns, we do a 5x from where the price is right now. Terminal price is at 118,000. That would bring us to around, let's just say 500K on terminal price. Very, very rough predictions here. Very rough predictions. So we'll chuck that in, roughly 500K. Q4 2025. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's worked so many times in the past. Why is it so high this time? Why is it so unlikely to work this time? We'll get into that in a second. We have a couple more things to look at. Pi cycle top. We can't actually get a price prediction based off Pi cycle top, but it is going to be important in when we come closer to the top itself. We can see where the Pi cycle is at and see how far away we are from a top that way. That's been pretty accurate in the past. Another thing is the monthly RSI on Bitcoin. You can see on the monthly chart RSI, we have this kind of descending channel formation that predicts bottoms. It predicted the bottom here, bottom here, bottom here. We undershot it a little bit, and then it predicts tops as well. So as we approach these yellow lines in the upper band, these resistance lines, we can start to say, okay, the top's going to be in very soon. But obviously, that's not something we can get price predictions from. It's just something we can use as resistance and as take profit targets when we actually approach the top in 2025 itself. Okay, so what about my prediction? Okay, my prediction is pretty complicated, probably more complicated than these other predictions here. It's based on 4-year cycle. I've taken various data samples from different points of the cycle. I've taken data from bottom to halving. I've taken data from halving to top, and I've come to 3 separate predictions differing from optimistic to conservative. Okay. Now you can go back and watch my previous videos on Bitcoin. Well, go back and watch my previous bull market top predictions to kind of fully understand these formulas, but I'm going to skim through it a little bit here. So I've taken data from bottom to halving 2016, 2020, and speculated bottom to halving in 2024. I've used the data, data points from previous bottom to halvings. I've come to an average between those numbers. I've calculated the decrease in return between those numbers and applied it here. 153 takes us to 39K at the halving, and that would take us to 120K at the top. If we're going further and extrapolating data from halving to top in previous cycles, etc. Basically, I use I use a lot of averaging. I use a lot of historical analysis. use a lot of, predictions and diminishing returns to come to these data points. And my first kind of moderate, I would say, because I have conservative, I have moderate, and I have optimistic targets. My moderate target is 120k top in Q4 2025. My conservative target's 103k. My optimistic target is 196k. So I've gone ahead and wrote that in. I've wrote that in here. Jotted it down at 103 to 196k Q4 2025. Now, obviously, that's a rough range. 103 to 196k is a big price range, and obviously, it doesn't really do much to help us. It does give us a vague estimation, but in terms of buying and selling, it doesn't really do much to help us. I assure you that at the halving, we will be able to narrow that down. The reason why it's so vague is because we've had to guess where the price will be at the halving in order to make these predictions. So when we get to the halving in 3 months, we'll be able to narrow down the price target pretty thin. I reckon we'll get it into a 25k range. Right now, it's at close to 100k range. We've got the first formula saying we're going to be at 39k at the halving. The second one and the third one saying 63k at the halving. So it's very difficult to kind of come to price predictions based on diminishing returns and speculation around diminishing returns when you don't know where the price will be at the halving, because the halving is an important data point I've used to come to the price target at the top. I've used data from halving to top. I've used data from bottom to halving. And so if I don't have the actual halving price itself, I just have to guess where we'll be at the halving. So again, at the halving, I'll be able to narrow it down. But right now, we're looking at 103 to 196k. I'd probably say it's more likely to be towards the lower to middle end of that. So the purpose of this video was to show you whether there would be, any sort of, trend in what people are predicting. And unfortunately, it doesn't really look like there is much of a trend in what people are predicting, right? We have various indicators telling us, we've got stock to flow model saying 500k. We've got power law indicator 300k roughly, although it could be anywhere from mid 150ks to 500k. And we've got the terminal price indicator saying roughly 500k. Again, these are very rough targets, which as per the right word, roughly. And then we've got myself saying 103 to 196k. We've got Benjamin Cowen saying roughly 100k. We've got Crypto Crew University saying 80k. Right? So there, unfortunately, is not really any real agreement as to where the price will go in Bitcoin's 2025 bull market. The general consensus is it's going to be under 500k. I haven't really seen anyone predict over 500k. So if you're looking at those $1 million targets based on, I don't know what you'd be looking at to find those, you're probably wrong. Even 500k itself seems on the more optimistic end. And the most conservative target I've seen is Crypto University saying 80k. But we're going to get into debunking some of these predictions now, and I'm going to come to why I think my prediction is the most accurate.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's a little news flash for you. You trust exchanges with your money. They get hacked all the time. They lose funds all the time. So the exchange you're using, you're actually trusting with your money. You're also paying them fees for trades. You're paying up to thousands, tens of thousands of dollars per year in fees. So you want to have a bloody good exchange, right? And that's why I have 2 exchanges for you guys, 2 options depending on your location, depending on what you want from exchange. The first one is Bitget. That is a KYC exchange. You can sign up from anywhere in the world, excluding the United States, excluding Canada, and excluding Singapore. Very low fees, protection fund, the whole 9 yards. We've also got Bingx. That's our second exchange, and that is an exchange you can sign up non-KYC from anywhere in the world, including every country, right? With a VPN from anywhere in the world. Again, very low fees, protection fund, everything you need in an exchange. Both of these exchanges are top 10 exchanges in trading volume. Sign up using my referral link below to get a 15% trading fee discount on both of the exchanges. Again, they'll both be in the description. Referral link is there. Get on the good exchange and become a proper trader. Don't use these trashy exchanges that you're risking your money and paying over in fees. Guys, let's get back into the video.
So, Benjamin Cowen. Why do I not agree with Benjamin Cowen? Well, I did a full video on why I don't agree with Benjamin Cowen, as I did with Crypto Crew. And you can see I have 6 problems. I have 6 definitive problems with his specific prediction, okay? You can watch the video if you want a full analysis into them. But problem 1, the trend is not reliably based. How is it not reliably based? Well, he uses a predictive method that shows a rainbow logarithmic recession indicator and basically says that every single cycle we're going to go down 2.5 bands in that indicator. The problem is in 2021, we didn't do that. In 2021, we exceeded the expectation in the first half of the cycle, okay? So already his trend is showing massive faults because in 2021 we didn't follow it correctly. So who's to say we're going to follow it this time? It's not a completely infallible trend. It's been broken to an extent before in 2021. So the trend is not reliably based. Second of all, he ignores the nuance of diminishing returns. I think he oversimplifies diminishing returns. He uses his indicator here as what diminishing returns would look like or what diminishing returns should look like. But the reality is we can go in a very large price range for Bitcoin and still maintain diminishing returns. All we need to do to maintain diminishing returns is go upwards less than we did in the last cycle. And that could take us to very high price predictions. We could go to 400k on Bitcoin and still maintain diminishing returns. Okay, so I think there's massive problems there. You can watch the video for more info on that. Third of all, the trend is unsustainable. The reason I come to this conclusion is because if we're looking at his logarithmic rainbow regression band, there's only one more cycle left of room. We can't do it again. We can't follow the trend past this cycle. It's not possible because he runs out of lines. So it's an unsustainable trend. So who's to say it's going to work out this time, right? Inconsistent with prior bull market structures. And right now, essentially, the problem with his prediction fundamentally that even he admits is that we are currently at the logarithmic regression trend line that we're meant to be topping out at 2025. So essentially the only way his prediction would work is if we saw significant corrections for the entirety of 2024 essentially, or significant consolidation for the entirety of 2024 essentially, so that we can see a bull market that will bring us to that price point in 2025. Otherwise it wouldn't work. Otherwise we'd just be riding that price line up gradually until we top in 2025. And we do have much evidence, much indicators to show us that we should be actually reaching all-time highs this year in 2024. And so that would actually end up exceeding his price target, his logarithmic regression band, which are meant to be reaching only in parabolic bull market tops. So the structure itself is just not working in this cycle, unfortunately. Problem 5, logarithmic regression bands aren't historically accurate. As I showed you on the chart and as I will show you now, there's so many different ways. There was a logarithmic regression band here that people were trusting pretty heavily in the last cycle that would have brought us to 100k. Didn't work out. There's another one here on the weekly that hasn't, particularly worked out that well. I suppose we've had some, large degrees of deviation, which isn't really present in Benjamin Cowen's one. Also, we didn't really reach where we were expected to reach in the bottom as well. It was meant to take us down to 12k. It did not. And if you literally just type up the word logarithmic, right? Logarithmic regression, you can see all these different logarithmic regression. Let's just finish the word here. Regression. You can see all these different prediction methods, right? Literally just 8 of them on the screen right now, all of which have failed in the past, right? He's done the thing that people tend to do, and I'm not trying to insult his integrity, where he's just adjusts the data every time because it didn't work perfectly. So he just adds a little extra input into the data, just like PlanB does, which we'll get into a second. But that's ignoring the fact that your data just doesn't work, right? And problem 6, popularity doesn't equal reliability, pointing to the fact that Benjamin Cowen has 700k subscribers has nothing to do with the accuracy of his prediction. So obviously I don't think Benjamin Cowen's prediction is correct. I think that coincidentally has come to a reasonable number. I think that his number of roughly 100k, I think he says 104k specifically in Q4 2025 is actually a reasonable number, but I think the way he's come to that number is wrong. But I will leave the number there because I do think the number is reliable to an extent, but I just don't think the predictive method, like the TAs used to get to that number, is reliable. But I'll leave the number on the screen for now. Crypto Crew University. Multiple problems with Crypto Crew University. I've got his video right here. You can see my timestamps if you want to go watch the video. I dived into everything in a 23-minute video in depth, but I'll just outline the problems I have with it. I think his formula is very much true. It's impossible to debunk. We do have a formula that says Bitcoin will be topping out at 80k based on a 5.3, dividing the number by 5.3 every single cycle. The problem is, again, just like Benjamin Cowen, it's an unsustainable trend, right? What happens after this cycle? After this cycle, if we divide 410, which is what we, came to a conclusion on the calculator, we got 410 this cycle. If it takes us to 80k as per his prediction. If we divide that number by 5.3 again, Bitcoin will never reach an all-time high ever again. And so it means that after this cycle, the trend has to break. And if we're following that formula to the grave, that means that Bitcoin will never reach an all-time high again. Now, the way Crypto Crew's got around that is by saying after this cycle, we'll see a 10-year bear market. And he's looking at the stock market, pointing to the stock market to kind of indicate that, saying the stock market's going to enter a massive recession for 10 years and Bitcoin's going to get dragged down. But this is a whole separate topic that we're not going to look into this video. I discussed it extensively in the debunk video itself if you want to see why I don't agree with that. I don't think there's any real evidence to suggest that's the case. Not only is Bitcoin correlation with S&P 500 not as simple as people think it is, but I don't think there's any real evidence to suggest that the S&P 500 will enter this 10-year bear market recession as well. I think this is just complete speculation. And he's using part of his prediction, trusting the 80k, trusting trends, and then he's using the second part, a 10-year bear market, not trusting any trends at all, really. So it's half facts and half speculation. I don't agree with it at all. But I do think, yeah, 80k is a reasonable target. But I think even himself will admit that, yes, the 80k top prediction is a trend, but there are also other trends, like a trend that says that Bitcoin has 1,100 days between all-time high to a breakout of that all-time high in the last 3 cycles. That is a trend as well, right? And that would suggest that Bitcoin would break all-time highs, would break 70k in Q4 this year. And if we're at 70k in Q4 this year, and we're only going up 10k more to get to the bull market top, that means there's no possible way, really, that the top could be in Q4 2025. And so, in a way, his 80k prediction is actually going directly against the 4-year cycle from a date range perspective. It's saying that, no, we're going to top out sooner than the 4-year cycle, and we're going to top out at 80k. And there's no indication whatsoever on the 5 separate macro trends from 4-year cycle to suggest that was the case. So you've got 1 trend versus 5. There's 5 trends in the 4-year cycle, and there's 1 trend that he's pointing at. So which one's more likely to be correct? That's the reality. If you're taking trends seriously, you can't really take this prediction seriously. You can, however, look at the number 80k and hold weight to that number. Look, when we reach 80k, and if we start rejecting from 80k when we get there, I will certainly be looking at his trend very seriously, 5.3. But I won't. I don't think there's any reasonable, I don't think there's any reason to assume that 80k will be the cyclical top. And not only that, I don't think there's any reason to assume that 80k will be the last high Bitcoin will ever see before a 10-year bear market on stocks and crypto. And furthermore, I don't think there's any reason to assume that the 4-year cycle will break because of this 80k top, which is what he's expecting. He's expecting a top to be this year or the start of next year, which will break the 4-year cycle. So multiple problems with Crypto Crew's prediction. The number itself and the trend itself on a surface level is valid, and I will be looking at the number 80k, but I don't think his prediction all in all is valid at all. So I'm going to delete that. Let's move on to PlanB. PlanB, it's very easy to debunk, okay? PlanB constantly changes his formulas. He's had multiple different ways to determine the stock-to-flow model in the past. For example, this was his last stock-to-flow model. Stock-to-flow model that he used in 2020 and 2019, and it predicted a bull market top at 106k. In fact, before this one, he had an additional one that predicted a 370k top in 2020. So he chronically changes data. He chronically blocks people who questions his data. And this stock to flow model from 2019, this is the conservative one, by the way, predicts a $1.2 million top in 2025. So look, there's no possible TA you could do that would bring you to that conclusion. Pure speculation. All right, that's all it is, right? And in this one, the one he's using this cycle predominantly, it's predicting a 524k top in Q4 2025. There's not really any way you can come to debunk something like that, unfortunately, because there's no real TA supporting it at all, really. It's just a chart that he's kind of whipped out of thin air. So you can't really debunk it. You just have to kind of take it at face value. And this is the problem with stock to flow. And this is the problem I ran into in 2020 and 2021. You can't really debunk it because it's so not based in the data that it's impossible to debunk using the data, right? So all I can do is say, well, my prediction is using actual data based on 4-year cycle, which is an actual trend. And your prediction is a chart with imaginary lines on it that says 500k. So what's more accurate? That's all I can really say with it. Now, I know this comes across as me being disrespectful to PlanB, but I have no respect for PlanB whatsoever as an analyst. I don't think he's got integrity at all. If you go around blocking people on Twitter who disagree with you, just because they disagree with you, you've got no integrity. I don't respect you as an analyst. So, no, I don't respect PlanB, and I don't respect his prediction. I think it's ridiculous. But yeah, I'm going to leave it on the screen here because there are other predictions, there are other indicators that come to a similar kind of conclusion. I'll leave it on the screen for now, that is. But you can see that the predictions that come to a similar conclusion, like the power law indicator, which has been very useful, by the way, in determining Bitcoin bottom prices, is not going to be useful in determining Bitcoin top prices because, as you can see, in 2021, it didn't work. We didn't reach the purple line in 2021. In fact, we went very far below it. So this is one of those situations where, yeah, the trend was secure in the past, and in 2018 it worked, but in 2021 it didn't work. That's a crack in the wall, right? It's indicative of it not working this time. If it didn't work in 2021, why would it work this time, right? And that comes to a similar target of 500k. So very similar to PlanB. If it didn't work this time, last time, why would it work this time? The trend is not secure anymore. The trend is not intact. And if that is predicting 500k, okay, then, we've got reason to believe this won't work. PlanB is predicting 500k as well. So in a way, we've got reason to believe PlanB's won't work. And the same thing with the terminal price indicator. Again, we came to the assumption that it would be topping out, that it would bring Bitcoin to a top at around 500k, roughly 500k, all right? And again, it didn't necessarily work in 2021 because we reached the top. We did reach it. We reached the terminal price in the first part of the year. But when the actual cyclical Q4 top came, we were, over 25,000 USD below it. So it didn't work in 2021. How can we expect it to work this time? So both of these predictive methods, right? I said 300k before, but if we're going to the purple line, it's going to be 500k on Power Law. Both of them, Power Law and Terminal and Terminal Bitcoin Price Indicator, both didn't work in the last cycle. So the trends are not intact. And both of them are predicting around 500k, right? And so is PlanB's. So using these other predictive form indicators and showing how they are not intact anymore also debunks PlanB's indicator, because PlanB's indicator is estimating the same price region. So we can go ahead and delete all three of these things. We don't need to look at any of these 500k predictions anymore. They all predict 500k. They're all not intact anymore. The trends aren't intact. They're all wrong to an extent. So that leaves us basically, and I can go through many other analysts in the space, and I'm sure there are many other analysts to look at, but these are just the ones I've chosen to look at today. That leaves us with Benjamin Cowen predicting 104k Q4 2025, and myself predicting 103 to 196k in Q4 2025. Now, as I said, I'll be able to narrow that down at the halving, but those are the two kind of predictions that both support the 4-year cycle and are reasonably backed by data. Reasonably, right? I don't necessarily agree with how Benjamin Cowen has come to that prediction, but I think the price is valid. It falls within my price range at least, right? So call me biased, but that's the reality of what it is. So 103 to 196k is where I'm expecting Bitcoin to top in Q4 2025. Again, at the halving, I'll be able to narrow that down. Let's say we reach 45k at the halving. That will bring us somewhere in between that range of 150k. Let's say we reach 39k at the halving. That will bring us to 120k top, right? So there's different numbers that could come out of this based on where the halving is. And again, we'll be able to narrow it down at the halving. But I think I've perhaps skimmed through a bit too much in this video. There's going to be lots of complaints in the comments about that. I've skimmed through data quite a lot. I've just tried to narrow this down because I don't want to make an hour-long video getting to the same points I would make regardless. I think the main points I'm trying to make is that a lot of people are using a lot of poorly backed data to come to their predictions. Specifically PlanB, specifically these indicators that have worked in the past but don't necessarily work anymore, like Power Law Indicator, like the Bitcoin terminal price indicator, like Pi Cycles, by the way. Pi Cycle, again, triggered a Bitcoin top indicator in April 2021, but the top was actually in November 2021. And if you want to sit here and say that, it was a double top, that's why it didn't work, 2021 was a double top. No, it wasn't a double top. We went 17% higher on the total cryptocurrency market cap chart, okay? 17% higher. If 17% higher is a double top to you, that you're just wrong, right? Going 17% higher from the previous top is not a double top. Again, total cryptocurrency market cap went 17% higher. So this is just simply incorrect. All it shows is that, perhaps we ran up too quickly in 2021 and the data's been distorted by that. But that means we shouldn't trust the data points anymore. So Pi Cycle top indicators not to be overly reliable, terminal price indicators not to be overly reliable, stock to flows never to be reliable ever because it just changes the data every 3 seconds, and then Power Law indicators not overly reliable. Crypto Crew University predicting a break of the 4-year cycle based on the 5.3 trend. I mean, look, it's something that needs to be discussed, but I've discussed it, right? I've done debunk videos, you can watch them and you can see what you think about them, but I think it's not reliable. Benjamin Cohen's using logarithmic regression lines that have never worked in the past, literally never worked in the past, and didn't work in 2021 to predict the top. I don't think it's overly reliable. I think the only reliable way you can come to a Bitcoin top prediction is by using the raw data itself, taking the measurements themselves. That's what I've done. And that's why my price prediction is so vague, because it's actually impossible to be precise, okay? It's impossible to be precise at this part of the cycle. As I said, at the halving, I will be able to narrow it down. Never look at someone with vague price predictions with judgment, okay? They're using vague price predictions because there's no actual way to come to a concrete price prediction using actual data. It's vague for a reason. That's the reality. We are 2 years away from the bull market top. It's impossible to be precise at this point. Again, at the halving, we'll be able to narrow it down. But I think I've given you an idea of where people are standing right now. A lot of people are standing on those higher predictions, 500k predictions, and they're perhaps similar to the people predicting 300k in 2021. And a lot of people like myself are standing on those kind of 100 to 200k predictions, which I think are much more reasonable considering we had a 70k top in the previous cycle. So I understand this video has been a little bit messy. I'm not particularly proud of how this video has come out, but I think overall, if you look past some of the messiness, we did get some good content discussed today. So guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the VIP group on Telegram if you want altcoin trading signals multiple times a week with a 78.52% win rate. We've got a PDF of all of our transparent trading results. Again, altcoin trading signals 3 to 4 times a week, and then also access to a 24/7 VIP group chat, right, where we discuss the market 24/7 with 120 members. So get in there. It's quite an interesting group. It's been very profitable in the past. It's been running for a year and 3 months now. Get in there if you're interested. And then check out the Crypto Academy. Crypto Academy will teach you how to trade. Let me refresh the page here. You can see the website. Become a Trader 10-unit course will teach you everything you need to know about trading, teach you about technical analysis, teach you about fundamental analysis. What is a financial market? How does it work? What is Bitcoin? How does it work? And then going into indicators, market patterns, all these kind of things that will teach you everything you need to know about becoming a profitable trader, market psychology, how to find trades, risk management. All the information's on the website with our email address down the bottom of the website. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.